Good morning and welcome to the ASUG News Studio covering news today from ASUG Annual Conference in Sapphire Now. ASUG News Studio is brought to you by NTT Data. Today we're here talking design thinking with Michelle Serrier with SAP and Sherry Meyer with Air Products. Welcome.
Thank you.
Good morning.
So design thinking is a topic I think many people have heard about but maybe know little about. So Michelle, I'll ask you, set the stage. Tell us what design thinking is.
So design thinking is a method, a process that was discovered or put together 25 years ago in California, Stanford University. And it's basically meant to design products. So the first mouse, the first electrical toothbrush and so on, were all designed with design thinking. And and that's how it started. And now we're using this more and more in technology to create new products. We're also in the automotive industry and so on to create cars. And we are starting also to use it for services.
So how is that different from brainstorming?
So brainstorming is, you could say, is a part of design thinking. Design thinking tries to answer the question, what is it that you want to do? It doesn't deal with the how, it's only what. And it looks at, it's user-centric. So that's the main difference to what we used to do in the past, is actually we're really going after the consumers, the users, and making sure that what we're going to create is something they're going to adopt. Otherwise, no point in doing it. And is that desirability? That's one of the three parts of the trinity for design thinking, so to say. It's desirability, the viability, which is can I make money with that thing I'm creating, and the third one is can I realize it, which is feasibility. Once you have those three circles, at the heart of it, that's where you're going probably to get a very interesting idea which is going to be adopted.
So we'll be listening to Hasso's keynote shortly this morning, and I understand he is a huge fan of the methodology. Tell us how SAP is using design thinking.
Hasso decided 6-7 years ago that actually he wanted to do a second pass at design thinking. He started to look earlier with the Stanford University, with the Hasso-Plattner Institute he has in Potsdam. They're using design thinking largely and cooperating with Stanford. And he really wanted to make sure that from now on, every product we have at SAP is actually user-centric and not just in words, but really in the way we develop it. So design thinking is applied to every product we now launch. And it helped us also to make sure that you actually reduce the time to market, because you interact with the users, so you're not fixing things afterwards, you're fixing them while you develop.
Very smart. So Sherry, as a customer, tell us about your experiences in design thinking. I don't know, they call them workshops?
Yes. Well, I learned about design thinking. I had no idea what it was about 5 years ago. We were working at Air Products with SAP on a co-innovation project, and that's all I knew, and I knew it was about talent management. And the team was remote on the phone and also in the room with us, and it was kind of surprising. We didn't know how to react because it was a blank page. So basically the team came in and would ask us some prompting questions. How do you do this today? What would you like to do? Very open-ended. And they would just record on flip charts everything we said or draw some pictures. And we spent about 2 hours with them. We really didn't know where this was going. And we left the room thinking, well, what was that? And then a couple months later, the team came back to us and said, we have something to show you. And they had wireframes to show us that. It was amazing to see how they took everything we said and incorporated it into a system that was user-friendly and really addressed our topics. And then from that, there were a couple iterations after that where we addressed, well, I don't understand that on the screen. I'd like that over here. Or could you add this? Because then once we got the theme of it, we were so excited to add more things. But it was then after that I learned that it was design thinking that they had applied. And I've noticed it being used since then in many different customer engagement initiatives and co-innovation initiatives with SAP, and I don't think customers even realize that it's being used.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was reading an article, Michelle, in Forbes magazine. You referred to design thinking as a verb, not a noun. Mm-hmm. What do you say to that?
I agree. I mean, it's something which is very active. So it's really like a verb. When you run a design thinking workshop, what you expect from the people is really to be active, to dive, to embrace the approach, because it deals also with empathy. So it's not just the moderator or the coach which has to bring empathy to the room, it's also the people that are in the workshop. It's a very active way of creating things, and pulling everyone together. So I would agree. It's really a verb.
Would you say that there is a right and a wrong way or a wrong way to do design thinking?
Yeah,
That-
interesting.
I don't know if there is a wrong way. Well, there is a wrong way if you get the wrong people in the room, or not. It's actually, you can never get the wrong people in the room. You can actually not get all the right people in the room, because it has to be multidisciplinary teams, because you need to make sure that everyone that is going to use it, not just one user. If you create an application or a service, it's really whoever is going to use it, or even people that are not going to use it may have interesting opinions to bring into the process. So
Yes.
there is no wrong. It's really getting the right people into the room and let them discuss
So
freely.
it's a purposeful conversation with the right people in the
Absolutely.
room, but it's an open conversation.
Absolutely.
So Sherry, we talked a little bit about design thinking as it applies to ASUG's Influence program. And I
Yes.
understand you have an experience there.
Yes, several experiences. We've done several different opportunities, I would call them, with SAP and with other customers as well, where they want to improve manager self-service, for example. They want to, show a new user experience. And it's really interesting the way they approach the team. Now, you're on a conference call, so it's a little bit more difficult. You can't really see as much what they're doing, and you can't see people's body language, which I think aids the conversation when you're in a room with somebody. So doing it remotely, I think, is a little bit more challenging. And it's also harder to get people to talk, and that's I think, the most desired
Absolutely.
skill of a design thinking facilitator.
Yeah.
Getting people to talk, especially when they're on the phone. My first experiences were, they would ask open-ended questions and there would be a lot of silence, just a lot of silence on the phone. And usually, because I've had some experience with it, I'll be the first one to speak up and throw something in, and then inevitably people will start chiming in. But the odd thing is, I find it's more difficult for customers because they don't know what's going on. No one's ever asked them, carte blanche, what do you want?
Right. So from a results experience from an influence program, did you find that it was a productive ends to a means? Or means to an
Absolutely
ends?
productive,
Yeah. Okay.
mean to an end.
Mean to an end.
Absolutely. For the first time, we're not being given SAP software. We're actually in on the designing floor. And being able to talk to the developers themselves, I think, is so interesting because you understand their mindset and where they're coming from, and you also break down cultural and communication barriers. So there might have, for example, many years ago, when I participated in usability, we talked about compensation. And at that time, the developer I was working with said, I said, where's the salary? I can't see the salary. And he said, well, that's private information. And I said, but I'm the manager, right? And I'm planning the increase, so don't I need to see the salary? And it was just like a cultural boundary. He was so interested in protecting the data that he didn't think about that. And all of a sudden, all the light bulbs went on for them. So, where they came to us with products before, now they're hearing about how business really works up front. And it's really a lot of fun, actually. It's fun to be in their mindset and let them hear your thoughts.
So Michelle, what are some common misconceptions about design thinking?
There are probably a lot, but I'm going to give them from my point of view, and please jump in whenever. But what I see is basically there is no one way to use design thinking. Design thinking is a methodology, it's techniques, but it's techniques to the point that Sherry-Ann was having on bringing people to speak up. There are techniques like brain dumping that you can actually use to make sure, even in a management meeting which you're running, where you have some alpha animals also that are participating, you can really use that kind of technique. So it's not just one way of using it. You can tweak the methodology, and it goes beyond the methodology. As soon as a customer, you're starting to use design thinking beyond what you may do with SAP, because you can do it also internally for other things, then it really could actually drive a change in the whole way the company is behaving, is acting, because everyone becomes innovative. Because when you're getting people into the design thinking mood, then you're basically asking them to be creative. It's about failing early, often. Doesn't mean making the same mistake twice. That's a different story. But it's really getting people again to take risks, which is in some companies something that has disappeared because of the way you manage and so on. So you're revitalizing the whole company. So it's more than just a methodology. That would be for me the biggest misconception there is with design thinking. And the second one is it's not telling you how you want to implement the things. It's just leading with the question, what is it that I want to achieve?
Do you have a favorite design thinking success story with an SAP customer?
we actually have many, but if I pick one, we actually managed with a CIO of a fragrance company. We organized a workshop actually only a couple of weeks ago where for the first time he was able to get IT and the business to talk together, because IT actually at a high level, because IT was actually not talking in IT language. We left the technology full out of it. We were only talking about a process which was relevant and core to that company. And that drove a success where afterwards now it's a business that is asking IT for even more support from a design thinking perspective, which is then bringing IT into a new position where they don't do just IT support, they're also then becoming change agents.
I love that. And it actually helps bridge that gap between that IT
Absolutely.
and business conversation.
Yeah, and that's so vital today, right? To bring those two counterparts together.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your time today, Michelle and Sherry Ann.
Thank
you. Very
Appreciate
welcome.
your insights. Thank you for joining us. For more SAP stories, please visit asagnews.com.